And welcome back to the Beaming Fast Forward podcast. My name is Charlie Jake Sanchez.
My name is Kat Solko.
I have seen a lot of movies.
And I have not seen a lot of movies.
We are here,
guys,
for a very special episode of GLICKED.
Glicked.
We've been glicked. We got glicked down.
We got glicked down. Horde. We're still reeling from almost 6 hours of movies.
It's been a long day.
6 hour period.
It's been a long day. All right, Cathedral.
Uh-oh. Oh no. Our brains have been glicked.
So we're just going to set it up. We just got back from the Universal City Walk, and we have been there for the last 7 hours.
Yeah.
We got there at 2:15 for a Prime showing of Prime is a format for anybody who doesn't know.
IMAX
at AMC.
Prime.
Not IMAX, Prime.
Okay.
And it was at 2:15. It was in Prime, and it was Wicked. Mm-hmm. And then we saw John Wicked, Glick. Yeah, we saw Gladiator at 6:30.
Yeah.
So. And
in between, we risked it all for a bucket of bubblegum shrimp, which actually were pretty good. So.
Yeah, it was okay.
It needed a little salt.
It was good for being frozen and then heated.
Yeah.
So here we are. This is gonna be
unhinged.
An absolute blast of an episode, and we are going to go through it pretty fast here, I think.
Yeah.
Is the idea.
I feel ready and raring to go.
For those keeping count, it is December, 14th, 15th?
Something like that.
Sunday, December 15th at 10 o'clock at night. So just so you know, we took a long time to do GLICKED.
Yeah.
And so we are finally here. The day has arrived. Kat, I think we should talk about this as a overall experience at the movies.
So here's the thing. We did Barbenheimer, right?
We did.
We did Oppenheimer first, Barbie second. That's the way to do it. Yep. Obviously, that's the only right way to do it. This one we wanted to do Gladiator 2 first, Wicked second, but the timing just didn't work out. In retrospect, I believe Gladiator 2 first, Wicked second is the right move. Only because Gladiator 2 is somewhat of a lower note to end on.
Interesting. Cool.
In my opinion.
Okay. I also thought that going in that was going to be the way to do it, was to do Gladiator first and then Wicked second.
Are you zagging?
I just want to say I have a lot of respect for the filmmakers behind both of these projects. I have extreme positives. Let's talk about Wicked. I have extreme positives.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, I quite liked the most important parts of Wicked, let's call them. And the other parts did not do it for me. Mm-hmm. And I came into this expecting to really enjoy myself. Yeah. Everybody I've talked to a T, has been like, Wicked was great. I really loved it all the way. Like, no qualms, no nothing from anybody. It's been shocking to me. So much so that this movie has become the Oscar frontrunner, I think, so far in the season. It's early, obviously.
Does frontrunner mean like it's going to win the Oscars?
I believe the odds are pretty high for Wicked right now. I think there's a lot of coalescing, a lot of major awards on the circuit. They've been either nominated or have been winning. I think some big ones. I can't name them right now, but it's quite an interesting thing to see at the end of the year. Well,
so let's talk about some of the highs, right?
Yep.
Some of the highs for me, obviously. So I knew the musical because I'm a musical theater nerd. Retired musical theater nerd, and Charlie had never seen anything about Wicked. He had not been spoiled. He hadn't even heard of any of the songs besides Defying Gravity, and even then, probably
Popular.
Just as a meme.
I think Popular and Loathing. I found out that I knew Loathing in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. So what I really loved was mostly the nostalgia of getting to see the show again, or at least one half of it. in a completely different way. I thought that the props, the sets, most of the choreography, besides that one weird part where they went to the Emerald City, and and like the singing, obviously, blew me away. These are like people at the top of their game. I loved the scene where she's singing Popular and she's like kicking all of her trunks and they're like unfolding like in different variations. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Every
Loathing?
part of the loathing montage essentially of like getting into school and going to all these classrooms and the cafeteria and like having your archenemy there.
The movie felt incredibly lifeless until Loathing hit. And Loathing was incredibly well done. It was a beautiful musical number in this movie and shows John Chu's, prowess in that moment. And then it goes into the Jonathan Bailey Library. I don't know what that number is called.
It's called Dancing Through Life.
Yeah, and then Popular and a big chunk of that middle beginning, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Is quite good. The filmmaking, Bug is losing his mind.
Burying
right now.
his head in the couch right now.
There's nothing under there.
He has been alone for like 8 hours. He had a walker, but he has been alone for a little while. Hi, it's okay.
A big part of that middle worked for me. That stretch of songs, and there's another one in there that I'm forgetting that was really good. But the filmmaking was impressive, very impressive in that portion.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it just was weirdly staged. And I, like I said, I have a lot of respect. I think John Chu has shown what he can do with the past 3 movies that he made. I actually quite liked In the Heights. I know it didn't work for a lot of people, but I thought his filmmaking was great.
Yeah. So I think maybe some of the nostalgia that I had was like clouding a little bit of that. I love the opening of Wicked, the show, and it's the same where she's like a princess in the bubble, Glinda the Good Witch, and she comes down and then they like burn an effigy, that kind of thing, of your old college roommate. Who can relate? But after that, it did sort of like, and like the wind was sucked out of it a little bit.
I just think that first number could be quite good. I couldn't tell. The editing was all over the place. They stitched together that thing to make it something where you see something like Loathing or even the Jonathan Bailey thing where the camera is moving in this elegant way.
Yeah, true.
And the opening is just stitched together in this way that just that felt apart. And so those are the things that I'm bumping on.
Sure.
I liked a lot of it. I was impressed. I just was because of I think I hate watching a movie this far out. Because everything has gotten to me, like reaction-wise, not necessarily
what have
spoilers.
You heard?
I just heard how good it was.
Okay.
How good it was, how great the numbers were. I had heard mixed reviews on Cynthia Erivo, which is interesting to me. And Ariana is getting praise, and she's getting.
She was great.
It seems like she's going to be nominated, and she may even win the award. Who knows? And she was very good. Cynthia Erivo, I thought, was just as good, and I think some of the staging just didn't put her in the position to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't like to criticize from my perch. I am very, very, keyed into this is difficult, and what they accomplished was impressive.
Totally.
So I have a hard time. I hate being in this position. I don't like it. And so
you're being Alien Romulus again.
Oh man, yeah, kind of, yeah.
Where it's like it's so good, but the things you're hung up on are like bothering you more because it's so good.
Yeah, kind of actually. Yeah, I think it's suffering from its own success a little bit, like
Yeah, I will say. So my one thing that I kept bumping on myself was, and I don't know what the reason for this is, but Cynthia Erivo's, not her singing. No one is questioning that woman's performance ability. Good God. But the moments where she wasn't singing, I felt a little, almost like she was detached from her character in a way that, like, Elphaba is also a young person, like, discovering new things about herself, but it felt like Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba was, like, going through the scenes, like, she was so assured in everything, like, nothing took her by surprise, nothing was, like, made her afraid, like, until the kind of the last act. I wanted a little bit more, I guess, vulnerability from Elphaba, even though I know she's not a vulnerable character. She's very hard and you know, cynical and sarcastic and has like a tough exterior. But in the moments where she is alone, I was watching the performance and I was sort of like, I'm just missing one turn of that character that's like a little more unsteady on her feet. And other than that, flawless, you know, like truly flawless. I do think you might benefit from another viewing with the subtitles, because I have issues with this with movie musicals. They mix it in a way where it's so unintelligible.
We are the Prime Theater at City Walk. I just want to say is one of the greatest audio experiences you can have. Dune we watched in there. We understood most of Dune, weirdly enough,
which is incredible.
And so the opening, I could barely understand any of Ariana's stuff, and I know it's supposed to be in that register, that key.
But Ariana already doesn't really enunciate when she sings. That's her style.
Right.
So
I never thought about that.
She was doing the operatic stuff really well. However, she needed to, I mean, there's a certain enunciation in musical theater that you kind of have to do if you want your audience to understand. I, as a person who listened to Wicked religiously and hadn't for like probably 10 years at this point, remembered most of those words. But if you didn't, I guarantee I knew you had no idea what she was saying.
Majority of the opening, I have no idea. I know that opening song is called "Nobody Mourns the Wicked." Is that right? No One Mourns the Wicked. And I liked what I was hearing, but I couldn't understand most of the stuff. But it was just like those little things of like the conceit of the opening, I think, is where it bumps on me also. The staging, the conceit of like, well, let me tell you about this thing, and like, and just
that's the conceit of the musical, to be fair. But
it just, I think the way it was set up for me just was strange. Now, having said that, getting any negativity out of the way, Jonathan Bailey, performers, I thought everybody was awesome.
Yeah.
Jonathan Bailey, I was like, he got freed from the Bridgerton prison. No disrespect to Bridgerton, very successful show. That is not a prison. Good for him. But
backtrack.
Oh my God,
Shonda's gonna come for you.
I'm trying not to. I really want to work in this town. So anyway.
But it is sort of something you get pigeonholed in if you become successful in it.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Most of the lead actresses have, I think, had a little bit of a struggle afterwards, not being known just for that.
Yeah.
And finding second work. You know,
Bailey broke out.
Broke
out. It was very impressive. That number introducing him is so damn funny.
It's a really funny character too. And the sets on that number are
super
fucking crazy.
Yeah, with that
cool
rotating thing. I was very impressed by that whole section of the movie. And John M. Chu, nailed the ending. Yeah. And that is maybe the most important part. And I think this is like Rogue One syndrome, and this is going to get me... why am I talking about Star Wars on this program? Rogue One had one of the greatest third acts of all time. And people walk out of that movie and they do not remember what the first third to half of that movie is.
Oh, I don't. Definitely don't.
And it's got some issues. It's got some issues.
I remember there were a lot of walking, talking scenes.
Some of the stuff but some of those, like, I love walking and talking, and I like kind of boring stuff, and I'm fine with that. It's not about that. It's about like making sense of the character. Mm-hmm. And it was just an editing situation. That movie was fraught, the production. So I think a lot of people walk out of Wicked with that ending, and they go like, "What a great movie! What a great time!" Because it is.
And it's like visually a fucking what's it called? A buffet for the senses.
It's brilliant.
What is the phrase? Yeah, I'm gonna coin it. It's a buffet for the senses.
It's a feast for the eyes?
Yeah, that.
We're clipping it.
Oh no.
That was good.
Oh no. That's a Jenism right there.
That's great. That is brilliantly done.
Yeah.
They nailed it. They got it. They figured it out.
Yeah.
Cynthia
that's when
killed it.
Cynthia was cooking with gas.
And so was Ariana. Their
Oh,
whole
no, totally.
Is it Limitless or Unlimited?
Unlimited.
And going into Defying Gravity back and forth. I love a back and forth situation.
And I did have I had a slight problem. Again, all these problems are very minuscule, but I had a slight problem with how much they were milking like the songs and the scenes. I felt like there was it was a slow paced storytelling.
Yeah, they left some air in, yeah.
There was some air.
Yeah.
And at some points I thought that was like not necessary, but in the ending when they were milking, I understood. Yeah, well, you got it. Just like let her cook and then have like a musical breakdown where she's flying through the air and then another belter and then another visual feast for the eyes and then
I was
the
very
finale.
concerned it was going to be over way too soon.
No,
and they did not.
They did the most with
killed
that.
it. And the only other criticism I have, which I don't even know if it's criticism of the show or criticism of the movie, is the animal mystery. Yeah. I just wish there was more clarity for Elphaba's character.
Right.
Going into the next movie about why she has to do what she has to do.
Yeah.
I get that she wanted to save these animals, but there was this feeling of like, I wish they just gave her more of a reason to break bad, kind of.
Yeah, there was, again, I don't remember the actual specifics of the show, but there's some weird, really rushed through exposition about how there's like a desert in Oz and somehow it's the animals' fault. And I maybe it's a second viewing thing or maybe it's just like glossed over. But the thing that I think I gathered was like, oh, when people are in strife, they need to blame someone. So they started blaming the talking animals.
I needed
connect
more
for me. I needed more,
And that was it. I think that pretty much sums up the whole thing.
It did, it still made me cry. I still like got the classic like shivers in my seat when she hits those good notes. She's just so good. She's so good.
Beautifully done.
She's so good.
And I think her you were talking about performance. I think her performance without the singing leading up to that moment, I thought that landed for me in a way that I really
it felt like she
appreciated.
hits her stride in that character somehow.
I was so happy with the ending. And so it is kind of like as soon as the to be continued hits, everyone was like, oh, in the.
I was genuinely sad that I have to wait like another whole year plus to like.
I did have that like, oh, this is part one.
Finish this story.
The whole time I was watching it, part one. This is part one. This is part one.
Yeah.
And so.
But I was worried because this is like a 2.5+ hour movie, and the show is like 3 hours, plus with an intermission. So I was worried that they were giving it too much air and like making it too long for no reason, but it was justified. I loved I think it was pretty justified.
And I think the movie sets itself. I think the second movie, a lot of people, this is what I'm hearing. I have no idea if this is true, but the second half of the movie, the songs are not as popular.
They're not as popular for sure.
Right. And some people saying they're not as good, but I think there is room for this thing to grow in a more mature way, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything specific about what I remember about the show other than like the second act is really the first act and its story is a bit like Disneyfied, intentionally so, because it's trying to set up this like magical world and then kind of break the facade. And then the second act is really about the issues of the world and like the reality of what it means to be a scapegoat and like for a cause. And so I really remember liking the second act for its themes.
Cool.
So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the second part. I think it is a incredibly well done movie. I don't even have necessarily issues with the front running thing. I think we're gonna have a conversation right after we talk about Gladiator about this year, blockbusters in particular. So moving on to Gladiator.
Yeah, Gladiator.
We
Gladiator. The eyes split.
Oh, the double eyes. We didn't even mention the incredible amounts of gay panic in Wicked.
So much
Just
gay panic.
incredible stuff. Cynthia Erivo scurrying out of that room. I'll never forget.
They go to it's so gay. It's so gay. They go to gay Hogwarts and they fall in love and
just
there's so much panic.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
the author
confirmed by the author.
Original book said, yeah, of
Gregory
course I put in gay panic.
Yeah.
Of course I put in lesbian themes.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So moving on to Gladiator, as Kat said, double, Roman numeral. We are kind of primed for a good experience, I think.
Totally.
Because of the Wicked thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like
shrimp.
I had been, and the shrimp.
Can't forget
that's
the
thing
shrimp.
is like, I felt like I had been served a meal.
Yeah.
And I liked it. Well, it was a good
feast?
meal.
What'd
It was
you
a good what did you call it? A buffet for the senses?
Buffet for the senses? You might call it a buffet for the senses?
And so I was ready for something more,
Sure.
Bit of a main course. And Gladiator was billed to me as disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people I respect, a lot of people were like, and they were like Paul Mescal, and so I was like, look, we just watched Gladiator, we just covered it on the show,
Yeah.
and we had issues with Gladiator.
Yeah.
Great movie, had some script things, and so I was ready to be entertained.
Were you not entertained?
I was entertained. Gladiator 2 is an incredibly flawed thing.
Yeah.
But man, they went for some things. They went for some things.
Yeah.
Denzel is just
Cooking.
I've heard of chewing the scenery, but I've never heard of chewing the clothing. Denzel was working with the costume the whole time.
Yeah.
He was like, and just like his little ring thing. I thought it was awesome to see him have that verve. And it's the same verve he has on the press tour right now. So good for you, Denzel Washington. I was so entertained by him. I thought he was right in the movie that he was supposed to be in. Paul Mescal, we'll talk about some flaws, but Paul Mescal, man, that guy is, the emotional. He's not quite a soft boy. He's very masculine, but I did not expect him to handle the physicality the way he did.
Yeah.
I was super impressed with what he was able to do.
And his face when he's like killing people.
Totally.
I believe him.
Awesome. And handling some of that. I want to get to your thoughts and then we'll go into it.
So I felt the same way, interestingly, about Gladiator 1 and Gladiator 2, which is the feeling of like being aware of myself in a theater watching a movie. Like, it's not the movie series for me that like pulls me in and like makes me forget I'm an audience member.
Sure.
It's the movie series for me that I'm like, this is a movie.
Yeah.
And I know it's a movie
Agreed.
the whole time.
Agreed.
I do think that it was quite flawed in its pacing, in the script. I wasn't a huge fan of the way that the narrative arc goes.
Same.
It definitely doesn't pass the Bechdel test.
God.
I knew from the moment it started that his wife was going to die instantly. Same reason. Ridley, you got to stop doing this. Cast an actual famous person. That woman was great. But cast an actual famous person if you don't want to give it away that she's going to die in a second. Like,
stunt casting. You want a little bit of stunt casting.
I just want it to not be so obvious.
Eva Mendes in there, just like, and then you're like, Eva Mendes is going to be in this whole thing, and then she dies in 5 minutes.
Exactly. And then I feel the tragic death. Hello? Anything else? So I'm not quite sure how to move on from that. For those just listening and not watching, Bug forcefully made out with me just now. Out of nowhere. He doesn't do that very often. All right.
No, I think he's just stoked we're home
stoked.
finally. So
Anyhow, what was I saying? He like kissed the thought out
I
of
think
me.
you were talking about Lucilla, the
Yeah.
Bechtel test. Man,
Yeah.
Connie Nielsen had to do some the same way that Paul Mescal had to do some heavy lifting during the action scenes. Connie Nielsen had to do some incredibly heavy lifting during these emotional.
Yeah, her
scenes
face must
that
have
were
hurt because it was just perpetually in like a
anguished
anguished
the whole
state.
time, and she had to say some real look. Yeah, the structure, the beginning of this movie is just super weird and has some of the worst CGI, and felt incredibly tacked on and strange, and was
really
a
bad CGI.
weird character intro. I think that might be the place where people are lost with Paul Mescal, is that character intro is not very.
It's not solid at all.
Not
I understand
solid.
they're trying to bury the lead, but like, come on, just give him something then.
Yeah,
Because it's like, if you want to make a twist really good, you have to put something else in its place.
agreed.
And then say, haha, just kidding, it's this. And instead it was like, who is this man? No one knows. Who is this man? And you're like, obviously it's going to be like the little kid, the only other surviving child from the first one.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about some of the things that he had to, like the gassing up of his soldiers, like just the connection with his father figure, who was, I guess, the tribal leader or something. I just all that stuff just felt incredibly rushed, and the CGI was rushed, but the thing is, like, as soon as it hits the afterlife and you see her going across the river Styx, right? Is that Roman? River Styx, or is that Greek?
That is
Anyway, it's all it's all part of the same whatever.
the river
big
of
stew.
death.
As soon as it hits that, I go, oh hell yeah, we're in a Gladiator movie. This is great.
Exactly.
And interestingly filmed, and it looked like hell, and this time it felt like, like
I
it was
liked
right.
I liked the color grade this time a little bit better.
Yeah, me too. It felt like a choice instead of this like kind of mixture of color.
Yeah, and I it's also the way it's shot.
It was a lighting thing. But yeah.
And also, like, it was shot in a more surreal way as opposed to
That's
just
what I mean,
shooting it normally and then just putting a filter
That's
over it.
exactly what I mean.
okay.
The lighting is like incredibly specialized.
Yeah.
And it's at these
Kind of
angles
reminded me
to
of like
really pop
old
it out.
school Baron von Munchausen like sets.
Or actually, I think it's Bergman, Ingmar Bergman. I think it's like when death is right there on the beach and everything like that. It felt like an older reference, which is great. And so that setup, I think, is where it loses a lot of people. And then we start getting into the, he's a gladiator, and the monkey scene is pretty freaking cool, and kind of the CGI is excellent on pretty much all the way through after that.
The sharks were a little rough.
The sharks, but it was so hidden. I didn't really feel.
Yeah.
This movie, I don't know what the deal is, but is it 60 frames per second or what? We should do
Your
some
eyes
research on this.
can see that more than mine.
It
I
was
understand when it's like
strange.
motion smoothing on a TV because I
That's what
hate
it
it.
felt like motion
but-
smoothing at the theater. And so the whole from jump, and so that first scene, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but everything felt very sped up, and so that stuff makes it seem like it's a soap opera or something. And
Yeah, exactly.
and so that first act or that first scene, I had a really hard time getting out of it. But by the time we enter Denzel, everybody shows up. The dual emperors.
The dual emperor, like, let's talk about the things that killed.
Yeah.
The twin emperors who were eating. They were
Awesome.
eating their characters.
They had a interview.
The disease that infected his loins has spread to his brain.
They had an interview, and they were talking about how Ridley would call cut and just be like, dynamite, you guys are dynamite. And
They're just, I'm sure that's the most fun part to play. Joseph Quinn was excellent. The pair of them were
agree.
perfectly cast
yeah.
as foils to each other, and you could immediately tell the dynamic between the two brothers
Mm-hmm.
and who was really in charge versus who was a little more unhinged and why. Also, Pedro Pascal, his character motivation, really loved his arc.
This is where we disagree on that one.
Didn't think he got much of it to do.
That's what my main concern is.
I loved every scene he was in, but it did feel sort of like he was trying to make more out of it than was on the page or maybe on set. And he tried, and I see the attempt.
No, he succeeded at doing that.
Yeah, especially the last scene. He has the last scene with the emperors where he's laughing. He goes, "You damn me." Okay.
Yeah.
Like, really fun, interesting character. I liked seeing him work. And then he died, and I was like, oh, now I have to watch like 40 more minutes of this.
That's so funny. I was mezcal pilled.
Although Denzel kept me going.
Denzel and mezcal, I was completely in.
Mezcal,
I don't know.
He did good. He didn't blow my socks off, but then again, I'm gonna say this, like, neither did Russell.
Whoa. That is the hottest take that you've ever said on the podcast.
I know.
Fascinating. You didn't even say it on the Gladiator podcast.
It took me a second to really like mull it over. They're doing good. Maybe I just don't love that. I don't know. I like an earnest character, so I don't think it's that. I did like, you know what I did like about Paul Mescal's performance was how grounded he was for like 90% of it vocally and stuff. Like, he was talking like this, really calm. Even when he was like shouting, it was like, I'm right here. I'm not like, I'm right here. Like that kind of performance.
Except for when he's like yelling at Lucilla.
Except when he's like that or murdering someone in the ring. But liked that choice as like kind of a more stoic main character.
Weirdly though, like there was something kind of devil may care about him that was like that his like the laughing stuff, which Russell doesn't do at all in the first movie
too
at
earnest.
all.
Yeah.
And so I liked that he had this like death wish almost, and he was just kind of like, you know, his what is it? His lot in life, he was kind of set with like, I've been through so much. You have that was how it felt. Like, you have no idea what I've been through. This is nothing. Like, I'll get through this or I'll die. I don't care at this point. I was really impressed by him. I like him a lot. I like him in After Sun, which is a movie that we may cover on this podcast.
I want to see it.
It's exceptional. It will be maybe the least watched episode of this podcast. But that's fine.
That's okay.
That's totally fine.
We're not doing this for the views.
Our fucking show.
Yeah.
So I thought he was awesome. I was blown away. Wasn't expecting it.
I heard very few things about this movie beforehand, but I heard Denzel, a criticism of his voice, just being like, he's not putting anything on. He's just being himself. It worked. I loved the turn between like, because you're never really sure if you have a good grasp on who he is as a person, and then when it turns it to like, oh, he's just power hungry, like, and will sacrifice anyone to gain his power. Yeah,
I just want to
really
talk to Ridley Scott and Denzel Washington.
Okay.
If you want to turn this into a series, the way that Matt Reeves and Colin Farrell did with the Penguin, I would watch 12
like an origin story,
24 hours of Denzel Washington. Doesn't have to be an origin, it just like the immediate last 10 years or something.
Yeah.
I would watch every second of it. That character was incredibly unique, and Denzel understood, you know, that guy.
He did things that were so surprising, and he what was most surprising, I think, it was how relaxed he seemed. Man, yes. He's like in his element as the character. The character is in his element in this like political snake's den, you know, like he gets the world that he is building for himself and he knows how to play it. So good.
He used every single inch of the screen. Yeah. It was just, I know it, you know, there's always the discussion of like, is it good acting or is it just a lot of acting? And it was both. That's how I felt. That was just you don't see it. You don't see an actor like him pull that out, especially this late in the game.
Yeah, I just think that he was making the most interesting choice at all times.
Agreed.
And that was like really I need to watch the movie, just his scenes, because I want to know what he does and how he does it.
It was absurd at times where he would extend the enunciation of a last syllable longer than he was. It was just awesome, man.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
He was playing.
He was playing, yeah. It was very theatrical, incredibly theatrical, but theatrical in the way
grounded in the film.
But what I mean by theatrical is not for the audience, for the people around him.
Yeah, totally.
Performing for the characters around him in a way that disarmed. There's incredibly charming.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then when he becomes the villain, the ultimate villain, crazy.
Yeah, but this movie has a lot of strange turns, or not necessarily turns, but things to make the pieces fit. First of all, I was shocked that Lucilla would even be alive. Like, you would think they would have gotten rid of her a long time ago. I'm not sure what the justification was there, or if that was normal in Roman times. They seem pretty bloodthirsty, and they would be like, Marcus Aurelius, old emperor, let's get rid of her.
Yeah, old bloodline. And so I was dumbfounded by that, and then therefore dumbfounded by the scenes that she had to perform. There are so many scenes in this entire series where Lucilla is just in her cloak sneaking into prison cells to have clandestine meetings. That is all she's doing. And she's trying to make each one unique.
I know.
But it's impossible. It's the same scene over and over with like very tiny variations, and it's a little boring.
And then the Maximus twist of her, him being the father.
The doy, yeah.
It's just as...
But it doesn't make any sense, really, because they're retconning the whole yeah.
It just doesn't, that whole thing, I wish they could have just reconfigured that to change some things and therefore make it...
Yeah, I wish they gave her just something else. She was... more interesting in the first movie because she had some agency about her, and she was working in her, wheelhouse to like do machinations.
And she had to constantly deal with that dangerous force that was Commodus.
Yeah, and protecting her son.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, she's like the wife of a general, the old queen.
That
protecting her son again, but like way more passively.
That's why that stuff bled over into the Pedro stuff, and I can't. They're inextricably linked to me, and so I wish I love Pedro. I
mean, the only choice she makes in the entire movie is to try to sneak Lucius out of the prison before the games continue, and it fails halfway through the movie, and then she's just a prisoner. It's like, for relatively the only woman in your entire movie. I get it. It's about gladiators. I'm just like a little sick of, there's so many men in this movie. Give one other woman. I guess the maid was like a little snitch.
Pretty brutal stuff, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a real throwback to that 2000 period. And the Bush era.
The Bush era of female characters where they get one thing to do and they don't accomplish it.
I mean,
slay.
I'm not gonna bring up a movie that won awards last year. No, we still need to talk about how fucking cool the action scenes are.
Really cool.
Amazing. I mean, the shark thing is so dumb, but
did they actually? If anyone knows,
no, they did not do that. But their argument was like, how do you know, but like, how do you know it couldn't be done? And I think they're 10 miles from the port or something.
Okay.
And so I don't know.
All right.
People say sharks couldn't survive that long and, without technology or something. I don't know. And frankly, that's not why I go to Gladiator. Got to be honest. I don't go to Gladiator to worry if the sharks can survive the travel from the port to Rome.
Yeah,
no, I'm here.
And slay for the spectacle. I really love, I like these types of movies. They're so fun to watch.
Yeah.
They do not capture me emotionally, but they don't have to. They're doing their thing, and they're doing it well.
Yeah. Yeah, the action just really hit me right where it needed to for it to make the movie work. And I think that's kind of where the reviews for this movie are good, and I think it has a lot to do with the staging of those action scenes.
Really well choreographed. Yeah, totally.
And I was on board with Mescal's character. I wanted to see him succeed. I wanted to see, I really was following him, and the ending with the two armies and stuff. It's a little silly stuff in there with Denzel and I'm glad he got a little fight. It was fun. I think people.
I love
who
his
went to the
death
movie,
face when he like realizes his arm's cut off, and he's like,
"Yeah, he's
great.
It was all for nothing."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die in the river.
Denzel's sick, man.
Yeah.
This was cool. This was cool. It was not a perfect movie, but didn't have to be, and I'm glad it was very entertaining. I was entertained.
I was entertained as well.
So,
yeah,
the meta narrative of all of this. Do you have anything to say? Because I kind of have like a big point to make about this.
I have no thoughts in my brain. Go.
We're here. It's the end of the year. Wicked is out. Gladiator's out. I'm talking about these movies in awards races. Guys, why are we making it more complicated than it needs to be? The blockbuster this year was Dune Part 2. The blockbuster this year that deserves the award recognition is Dune Part 2. It's not all about the awards. I am grateful that all these movies exist on their own merit. Dune accomplished everything it was trying to do while dealing with the spectacle, while dealing with subversive themes. That movie is the best blockbuster of the year. Let's not make it more complicated than that. I promise you it does not have to be. Dune Part 2 is excellent. You can crown it. It's not a problem. If Wicked Part 1 wins Best Picture,
it won't.
When Dune Part 2 is getting dinged because it's a Part 2 and therefore there's a Part 3 coming and they want to give it to Part 3 like Lord of the Rings or something, that would be a bizarre twist. And
interesting.
I think Wicked deserves its noms. I think Gladiator, I don't know if it'll be there, but Dune is...
Who cares if Dune Part 2 is nominated and wins and then Dune Part 3 is like nominated but doesn't win? Like, who cares?
No, nobody cares. And I don't know why they would
Dune
save
Part
it
2,
or something.
Dune Part 1 was a decent movie. Dune Part 2 is a fucking movie in the height of excellence in every way.
I agree.
So, you're right. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you, babe. Not just because I'm your future wife, but because you are right.
It was striking me watching Gladiator, and I was just like, flawed, whatever. And I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're at the end of the year, and Wicked's great. Wicked's really
excellent.
good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This equivocation is interesting to me, especially when Oppenheimer was like the runaway favorite all year, and this year it's almost like they're afraid to do that again.
Because everyone knew who was going to win.
Was a little boring.
It was a little boring.
And look, I'm not saying Dune has to win all of the awards. I'm just saying every year it's inevitably there's a blockbuster that like goes head and shoulders above
and it'll be Dune.
Yeah.
I hope.
Well, I don't know. It's been left out of some of the major, Best Picture awards from the critics in certain places. So we'll see.
Interesting.
I'm a pure sicko. I know this. Kat knows this. I am going on December 18th, Wednesday at 11 p.m. at night to go watch the IMAX showing of The Brutalist, 3.5-hour movie. And I might be going by myself.
He asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, my love, I will fall asleep. I will fall asleep. I don't care how good it is.
Look, I am, in my 30s now, and it's not easy for me to do what I'm going to do on Wednesday. I'm going to take a nap. I need to take a nap.
Imagine you're about to start the movie right now.
And you just said that, and my pulse quickened, and my blood got hot, and I was so stoked.
Wow.
I'm so excited for The Brutalist.
He's a film head. Guys, this is his bread and butter. He is meant to work in this industry just purely based on the fact that his pulse races at that idea.
I'm a sick man, I know, but
I think you have to be in order to be a director in Hollywood. You know?
to be a podcaster
or a podcaster about movies.
So
That's it.
this was an excellent, interesting. Gladiator was so interesting. What a weird movie. What a strange thing that was to see, like the Emperor stuff.
Individual scenes were so good, and the thing as a whole didn't work for me. But also the last individual scenes were so good.
You know where it got me? Where I was like, "Whoa, I think I'm really into this movie." Was the scene where he's in front of the two emperors and he just killed that guy and he's reciting poetry. All of a sudden,
yeah. That was a really good scene.
That scene, I went, "Oh, I don't know where this is gonna go," and the danger that I felt in that moment, was exciting.
Yeah,
and so
Joseph Quinn's look,
in
his like sickly white makeup, so good.
It half like being like, "Are you insulting me?" But
or
I'm
are
also
you joking?
intrigued.
Yeah.
Are you joking? And I don't know, and I'm mad, but I'm also excited, and it was really cool. I thought, and just like the little things, what's his name's behind him in the scene with Pedro, and Pedro just left, and he's like swinging the sword, he's all so angry, and Joseph Quinn is like giving the orders and stuff. It's just
he's a
weird and cool and interesting choices being made, and Ridley's got it, man. Still, it's just I still haven't seen Napoleon. We still haven't seen Napoleon.
Is that Ridley Scott?
That is Ridley Scott.
Huh.
It's Ridley Scott and Joaquin.
Interesting.
Back in action. All right. Well, any last thoughts of our glicked adventure?
I feel thoroughly glicked.
What's your aversion to glicked? What's your aversion to glicked?
What do you mean?
Like you always say glicked. Like that's your thing.
That's how I read it the first time.
I read
now
it as glicked.
Well, that makes sense because that's the two words put together.
Right.
I read it as a verb in the past tense. Glicked. To glick. Which we did. And these are hard days for me personally. This is
built
like
for this?
heroin.
Yeah.
Is that where you put heroin?
Oh, in your vein here in your arm? Yeah, that's where you put heroin.
Okay.
You can also do it in your toes.
I thought that was opium.
I think isn't opium. This is kind of like.
Anyway, sorry. It does things to my brain like this, where I'm just like I'm spiraling out a little bit. It's a long day. I had a great time. I think the point of these double feature days, like Barbenheimer and Glicked, is that they're spectacle 100%. So you're never like, you don't have to do like Wicked and then The Brutalist. That would really never work. Sounds like a perfect day to Charlie.
No, it's just a day. It sounds like a good day.
It would be too much for me to like be like, and then have to like really tap into like some emotion. This is great.
I am happy that Brutalist will be a pure experience. Will be completely pure, uncut. I don't play around. Look, heroin is nothing to sneeze at.
No, because you don't put it in your nose.
You cut that one out and clip it. Heroin's nothing to sneeze at.
That's it. No context. Guys, we are falling apart. We love you.
I just want to say thank you for being on this journey with us.
Yep.
This experience of beaming at the movies is always just such a treat.
Yeah.
And there, as you have seen throughout this entire video, there are no visual references on this one. We just want to get these out.
Yeah, we're just going to crank these out.
These are like we don't even talk about the movie until we're on the couch. So yeah. Very exciting. Thank you so much for watching. Be Mean Fast Forward. Be Mean at the Movies. Glicked. And we'll see you on the next one. It's a very exciting movie. We will not spoil it for you, but it's children. No, I'm just kidding.
It's beep. Guys, be kind, rewind, and have a great night.